MISSION Athletecare, a leader in thermoregulation, is announcing a partnership with the Kory Stringer Institute to shine a spotlight on heat exhaustion awareness, a silent killer. Dr. Douglas Casa of the KSI and Chris Valletta of MISSION Athletecare are here to discuss the problem of overheating and what people need to know to prevent this threat that's often overlooked. Good morning, gentlemen.
Thank you.
This is something that's really important, even though it's starting to get cooler now. Kids are heading back into their workouts, into team workouts and practices. This is something that's very important. Dr. Casa, tell us more.
Sure, yeah. Exertional heat stroke, what happens when an athlete gets too hot during activity, is one of the 3 leading causes of death in sport. And in fact, it's one of the 3 leading causes of death in training in the military. So whether it be someone on an athletic field or a soldier or a laborer or just someone in their backyard, when you do intense exercise in the heat, you're at risk for exertional heat stroke. Mr.
Valletta, tell us what we can do to save ourselves from heat stroke as we do start to overheat.
Well, I mean, there's a variety of things, and that's what's so great about the Kory Stringer Institute. Dr. Casa and KSI have outlined a series of guidelines that schools and institutions can implement immediately to actually get in front of heat safety and get in front of heat stroke. At MISSION Athletecare, as a leader in creating innovations that address the issue of thermoregulation, we've created a portfolio of products called EnduraCool, which is a textile that instantly cools when you get it wet with water, giving you a sensation of coolness as one of the, as a spoke on the wheel of things you can do to get ahead of heat illness and certainly getting ahead of heat stroke.
Remind us who Kory Stringer was.
Sure. Kory Stringer was an NFL all-pro offensive lineman who played for the Minnesota Vikings, and in 2001, during the first day of training camp, he struggled and had a heat exhaustion. He went back on the morning of day 2 and was not feeling too well and had a heat stroke, and to the organ damage from he was hot for too long, and he died later that night. And his wife worked closely with Commissioner Goodell of the NFL to try to create a lasting legacy. And the University of Connecticut is the host to that Kory Stringer Institute, and we work tirelessly to try to change policies and do research and educate to try to prevent sudden death in sport.
You guys are giving away $1 million to schools that are showing that they're on the cutting edge of this. Tell me more.
We are. MISSION and KSI are pledging $1 million of EnduraCool products to high schools across the country that meet the qualifications and the standards that are set by KSI and Dr. Casa. You can actually go to the website. It's missionathletecare.com/heat safety pledge. You can learn how to qualify and become one of those institutions. And ultimately, our goal, our mission, is to ensure that what happened to Kory Stringer never happens again. We hear about heat stroke, heat illness, and heat deaths far too often. One is way too much. There are measures you can put in place to address the issue and get in front of it, and there are certainly things you can do if a heat stroke happens to make it a 100% survivable event. And we want to make sure that everyone knows, that parents know, coaches, educators, everyone is aware of those issues and getting them implemented as soon as possible.
So what can we do beforehand, before we start practicing, and we know we're going to be in a situation that may get us overheated? What can we do before that happens?
That's a great question. Important thing to keep in mind, most heat stroke deaths happen in the first 2 or 3 days of activity in the heat. So getting yourself in good shape first before you do those heat exposures is important. But then also making sure, especially at the high school level, that there's something called heat acclimatization policies. That's phasing in activity over time. So phasing in the 2-a-days, phasing in the equipment. As an example, like a nearby state, like Virginia, does not have meet the minimum standards for heat acclimatization. We have 13 states right now that have met those standards, but that's just an example of some of the things that can be done.
And what happens when we do find ourselves overheated? What should we be doing?
The most important thing is to cool the body temperature down for either yourself or the athletes that someone's being cared for on the field. Cool it down as fast as possible. Cold water immersion has the best cooling rates, and a lot of the high school, college, and pro teams, they have cold water immersion tubs on the fields, like right on the sidelines. So if anyone ever did have a heat stroke, they could have them cooling down within a few minutes of collapse. And that's the thing that could assure survival, is minimizing the number of minutes the athlete is hyperthermic.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for telling us how we can stay safe as we start to get back on working out and getting our kids back on the fields. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More Let's Talk Live's coming up. Stick with us right here.